instead of 30 minutes from Yarborough Road to my home in Haymount, it's now 15 or 20 minutes. But the staff approval at R20, and they gave your reasons, and I'm not exactly sure of the reasons why, but the board approved at R30. Rezoning is consistent with the 2030 land use plan. I want to remember this. This is not the last time the county will have some say-so over this plan. This is the initial zoning from which we have to build our plats and do our engineering. But until we get the R20 zoning, or perhaps even the R30 zoning, we can't design the project to address some of the details that I think many of you would like. But it will then go back for subdivision approval for engineering design, and ultimately individual building permits, at which point in time, and a major design component will be the capability of septic tanks, which will probably militate toward a larger site or size lot than that actual R20 is. This is a letter that says, although they don't take a position, however, Cumberland County Schools support the water extension project by PwC to serve this area. And this was to Ms. Spiker as a part of this rezoning. Again, this is what we find ourselves with. To the right is property owned by the same people. To the left is RR zoning. Which is the same density as our project is, but it also allows mobile homes. And of course, as I said earlier, the northern extent of, if you think of this as just simply an extension of the Cypress Lake development scheme, up to the north is R15 actually, and we're asking for only R20. I thank you for your time, and I'll now leave a moment or two for Mr. King, and if I have any time left, I'd like to reserve it for rebuttal. We have several people here, but to keep this thing going, we thought we'd limit the speakers.
My name's Larry King, 1333 Morton Road is Larry King and Associates. I have 1 minute. I was talking to my client, the developer. He said if it gives you a great comfort level, he'll agree to 20,000 square foot minimum lots on the side. Cumberland County adopted a phase 2 water regulation years ago. In a phase 2, you have to have 2 lots or less per acre, or 24% less impervious area to be a low density stormwater area. We meet these regulations as a low density subdivision. Let me get back on my notes here. This developer will build a stormwater pond to ensure that neighborhood and adjoining properties don't have any problems with drainage. The amount of drainage leaving this site after streets and houses are built will be the same or less than we have now.
Thank you.
Anytime we'd like to reserve for
Any other speakers?
We do have speakers in opposition. Our first speaker is Ms. Sarah Johnson.
Ms. Sarah Johnson.
My name's Sarah Johnson, 6749 Country Downs Drive. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you this evening. My neighbours and I are deeply concerned about the rezoning request that has been made regarding the property at 2787 Thrower Road in the Grays Creek community. This is a 75-acre parcel which includes an historic structure, a farmhouse that is over 100 years old. The initial request was for A1 to R20, however, the Planning Board has chosen to recommend R30. R30 zoning is not in keeping with the surrounding community's character. The smallest lot size in the area is R40, except RR as outlined in Appian Way on the map we have seen tonight. These homes are actually on several acre lots. The nearest smallest size lots are in the Cypress Lakes development, which is the next neighbourhood over. People live in the area of Grays Creek because they like living in the country. This is a simple fact that is acknowledged and encouraged in the South Central Land Use Plan, which was adopted by the Cumberland County Board of Commissioners on June 15, 2015, which is less than 2 years ago. This land use plan was carefully crafted and put forth by the Joint Planning Board after much hard work, research and input from the Planning Board and area residents. The property in question is located within an area that is designated by the plan to be farmland. Typically 2-acre lots are required in this A1 zoning, and this is what the residents strongly prefer. The document does go on to provide for the possibility of 1-acre lots, but only if certain requirements are met. The possibility of lots less than 1 acre in size is not entertained by the land use plan at all, and it would surely be an unfortunate precedent that would change the landscape and character of the Grays Creek neighbourhood. Furthermore, the plan specifically recommends that areas that are currently being developed as residential and already have access to water and or sewer be fully developed before new areas, and especially farmland areas are developed. In the areas close to the farmland in question here, there are residentially zoned areas that have readily available lots for buyers that desire a smaller lot size. Therefore, the residents of this neighbourhood are asking the Commissioners to follow the recommendations of the land use plan, which would keep a lot size to a minimum of 2 acres. This would preserve the rural character of the area and offer an option to buyers that might prefer a larger space for their home. In order that development does not occur in a haphazard fashion, we would ask that the Commissioners consider all of the projects that are being proposed to the area rather than looking at each request separately. According to the land use plan, the projected growth for the whole South Central area was 700 new homes by 2020.
I'll let you finish that sentence. Go ahead.
Okay. We surely hope that that all of these houses are not going to be in our neighbourhood. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Ms. Lynn Williams.
Miss, one more time.
Ms. Lynn Williams.
Yes.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. Regardless of the lot size that is
If you would
approved-
state your name and address, please.
My
for
name
the-
is Lynn Williams,
Yes.
and I live at 2792 Thrower Road in Hope Mills.
Thank you.
Regardless of the lot size that is approved, and assuming that the land in question is developed, the residents of the area have some major concerns, and we would, at this time, like to ask some questions that we would like to have answered. The first concern is traffic. If a large number of homes are built, the traffic on Thrower Road will increase heavily. How is this traffic going to be accommodated, and where will the entrance to the development be? If Thrower Road will need to be widened, then current homeowners who have nothing to gain from this development will lose part of their land. Another concern is appearance. If the land is to be developed, the developers should be required to adhere to the recommendations of the land use plan, which includes sidewalks, an attractive entrance, lots which back to the road frontage, and a natural buffer of a minimum of 10 feet wide along the road. Additionally, the plan recommends that open space and cluster development be utilized, which would allow for the preservation of the rural landscape. Also, this particular parcel of land has on it a house which is designated to be of historical value. An area of natural buffer should be kept around this house. Third is the potential for flooding. Already, owners along Appian Way experience large amounts of water in their yards even after a heavy rain. Another concern is the possibility of overcrowding in area schools. Most of the schools in the area are near or over their capacity. So how will the new influx of students be addressed? The issue of public water. The truth of the matter is that the vast majority of current residents are quite happy with their well water. In March of 2011, a PWC water referendum was held and voted down in the Grays Creek area. The only reason to bring the public water really is for the development that they are wanting to put in. Additionally, the residents are concerned with the PWC sludge that has been dumped on this land. This sludge is typically very high in nitrates and contains heavy metals. Potential buyers should have the right to know what's been dumped on the land they're buying. We would like to know why the land use plan, which was carefully and thoughtfully put into place, is not going to be followed. We also have taken a petition around to all of our neighbors. We have 93 signatures here, and we would like to, if it is possible, submit this to the county commissioners.
If you submit it to the clerk.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak tonight.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Mr. David Lambert.
One more time, Madam Clerk.
David Lambert.
Okay.
Our next speaker is Roger Hobson.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Roger Hobson. I
Good
live at 6750 Appian Way. Appreciate the opportunity to be here in front of you today. We know that there's changes coming to Grace Creek, but we're not satisfied with the R30. If y'all can go to a R40 with 1 acre per lot, we will have no problem. But I own 3.86 acres on Appian Way, and when I went down there 1995, we had to have 2 acres of land to build on because of septic tank and water. And I have another concern about this trailer that was shown on the thing. It is not on Appian Way. It is behind Appian Way property. So I don't know why they would show this trailer as being on Appian Way. There's not 6 houses on Appian Way. That's all that can be there right now. And if y'all can go to R40, we'd appreciate it. But R20, 2 houses per acre, R30, 1 house per 3/4 acre is just not acceptable in that area. And I've been down there since 1993. And I just wish that y'all could go to R40, and I know change is coming, and I don't have any problem with that. But I don't like this R30 at all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker in opposition is Cynthia Kennedy.
Good evening. My name is Cynthia Kennedy. I live at 6709 Country Downs Drive. And there was some talk earlier, a mention of flooding and that perhaps this would come up, so I am going to bring it up. My house is at the end of Country Downs Drive, that borders where you see the R20 towards Cypress Lakes,
Up at the,
up on the left. So if you go from the A1 of Country Downs Drive, up straight up it says R20.
yes.
Okay, that comes right off of Bullard and Cypress Lakes. I've been living on my 2-acre lot for 20 years. I've been through a lot of really bad storms, and we've had a lot of standing water in the past. This is the first year that we were flooded, and myself and my neighbors were completely isolated on our road because of the flooding this year, and it's because of that development. I would urge you to look at the FEMA website, where you will see that the #1 cause of flooding is in fact development. So I raised the concern about the development there, especially because my parents live on Thrower Road right behind there as well. And I believe that trailer is behind their house, where my handicapped brother lives. So that's my #1 concern. My second concern is Grace Creek High School, which is currently overcrowded. Where are the rest of these children going to go? What accommodations are going to be made for the school? And if the schools want water that bad, why hasn't anything happened before now? So although they're going to bring it partially there, there's going to be more development have to take place, somewhere else in order for them to get it all the way to the schools? And I believe that's, my last concern is the septic tank capacity on that property. What happens in a bad storm and in the flooding when you've got an additional 100 septic tanks out there? That's all I have to say this evening. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Our next speaker in opposition is Mr. James Bill.
James Bill, and I stay at 2702 Thor Road, and I own the well drilling company that's on that road. And I like to just go over some of the things that I've run into, especially in the last week. If these lots are too small, here's what's going to happen. Here's what some of the homeowners are telling me. I went over to service a well for the winter, and in discussion with him on some property across the road from 87 that's very similar to what they're wanting to rezone it. This customer tells me that that he has a house on a piece of land that he can't put an outside garage on it because the septic tank and drain field is so big on his house. And he said he couldn't put an in-ground swimming pool. Now, these are things that would be taxed if he could do that. But if these lots are too small, then they're not going to be able to allow them to do these things. So he says, I'm a proud owner of a house with a grass in my yard. I can't even plant a tree because I have too much septic tank and drain field in it. So if you allow them to put in 3/4 of an acre, that's way too small. Now, this land that we're talking about, I was raised on that land. Some of that land is heavy because we farmed it. And when it's heavy land, that means there's going to be a lot of drain field on some, not all the lots, but some of them. And so I ask you to reconsider making these lots this small so people can put outside buildings on it if they want to, a swimming pool, and trees in the yard, because this one customer said, I'm afraid to even put a tree in my yard because I don't have no shade. I'm in a farm field. And I thought when I moved in the country, I got a country home, but he does not have one. And thank you for the opportunity to talk to you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Our last speaker in opposition is Mr. Matthew Bennett.
Hello, my name is Matthew Bennett. Live at 6740 Appian Way. It's the second property down Appian Way, just adjacent from the little corner that juts out on the property in question. Really, everything else I wanted to say has been said by my neighbors. And one thing I do want to point out, the Cypress Lakes conversation keeps coming up in the comparison of our neighborhood to theirs. I see two problems with that. One, even in the pictures that Mr. Yarborough shared, you can't see Cypress Lakes from my property, and I don't believe you can see Cypress Lakes from many of my neighbors' properties. So I don't feel like we're part of that neighborhood. The other thing is, unless they're going to put a golf course in this field, I don't feel like it's the same type of neighborhood with the same type of amenities or lifestyle. It's to me, it's a completely different conversation. So that's really all I wanted to bring up.
Thank you so very much.
We have no further speakers.
And I think, Mr. Yarborough, you reserved probably half a minute, but come on. I will give you 2 minutes.
Thank you. Very briefly, it isn't, R40 won't work. It would just, the financial part of it, we cannot address some of the concerns that people have raised here as far as the retention ponds, the type of development that is necessary. We can't handle the water expansion. It just won't work at R40. So we have no desire at all for R40. I just want to make that perfectly clear, and it would kill this project. The second thing I would say is this project has been and will be further designed to make sure that no water leaves this property. In other words, through our Mr. Eaker, who is our soil scientist, he is aware of the requirements of the septic tanks, how that is to be addressed on the site. Through our engineers, we are planning retention ponds to address those things. Grace Creek is growing. Grace Creek is growing. It is developing. Whether you want to, if in effect, waste land by overdeveloping, or whether you want to put the development in an orderly, well-organized, well-developed method, it should be of great concern to you. We believe that with the population moving our way because of Highway 87 and other events, that we need to have reasonable density to keep that farmland, which is still available. And therefore, for that reason, we would ask you to please follow the recommendation and the land use plan of 2030, recommendation of the planning staff at R20, or at least the R30, but we can't go at R40. And we think that the R20 makes better sense for this property. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'd give opposition 1 minute if there was any one person that wanted to speak to that. No. No.
So I have to do this off the top of my head now.
It's a rebuttal. It's a rebuttal. That's kind of how the rebuttal works.
Okay.
To whatever he
Okay,
said.
so, I mean, the fact that it is not financially feasible to them does not concern the residents of the area. What concerns us is that we don't want overpopulation, we don't want flooding. We feel that the South Central Land Use Plan that was adopted by the Planning Board and the Commissioners of Cumberland County less than 2 years ago should be followed. We see that there is no reason not to. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you. With no other speakers, I will close the public hearing and call on Commissioner Evans, or if you have any comments? No. Anyone else have any comments, any commissioner?
I have
Commissioner
a
Booth?
question.
Okay.
The
Your question is to staff? or to-
developers,
Okay, Mr. Yarborough. and his-
Mr. Yarborough, that'd be fine. The sliver that's kept at the very bottom there between the two R40s, also emptying out on the lower Thrower Road, yes. What's the focus or the intent with that?
That would provide, if need be, that.
Yeah, you need to get to the microphone if you don't mind.
That's probably something that would be a little bit more clarified in the final design plan, but that is available for emergency access or whatever the demands of the development or the county might be in handling that. It is, although the primary access is proposed to be off of the northern boundary of Thrower Road, this still provides some flexibility in designing any type of access for more convenient traffic or for emergency traffic.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Mr. Keefe?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a couple questions. The first one I'll address to Mr. Lloyd. Mr. Lloyd, I heard, I believe, Mr. Yarborough say that his developer is committed to allowing only one house per 20,000 acres. How would that be addressed? How would that be addressed?
We calculate the density and make sure.
No, I mean, how would it be addressed to ensure that he only allowed, that he did one house per 20,000 square feet? When would that happen? When he puts in the development plan, or can it be part of the motion, or?
No, it can't be part of the motion.
Okay, all right, let me go on to the next thing.
Well, let me see, I think Mr. Yarborough wanted to answer your question, Mr. Keefe, I guess.
Mr. Yarborough?
If you come down to the microphone, please. Just sit on the end right there, Mr. Yarborough.
I can't because of my shoulder.
On the other side there.
At this point, it would have to be addressed by restrictive covenants that have been, that will be placed on it by the property owner itself.
But not in a conditional use.
This is not a conditional
You're
use.
right.
This is straight
Right.
rezone.
So all we're doing now is,
Rezone.
okay, the second thing is, the Grace Creek land plan is obviously in conflict with the 2030 plan.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I wouldn't be representing the planning board adequately if I didn't. The planning board has been emphatic in the fact that plans change. Many people think that you have a plan and everything's supposed to stay the way that plan is for the next 15, 20 years. If you look at this particular plan, it shows right north of Thrower Road is suburban density on the plan. It's hard to draw a line on a plan and say, at this road or at this lot, we're going to cut off one density and go to another. So that what the planning board said is, for every plan that exists from now on, including this plan, we're going to have a statement, and that statement appears in the front of the plan, which says that there are certain triggers which will cause the plan to change and evolve, triggers such as water and sewer. So, in essence, it doesn't really go against the plan because of that statement that's put in there. It goes against the map where you have to settle on, but they wanted that statement in all of our plans that says there are triggers which cause these plans to change. Water and sewer are examples of those triggers. And so, in this particular plan, if water's extended, then it would be consistent with the plan and that it would evolve to greater density. And that one statement was put in there for cases like this.
Okay, and the follow-up one last on this, Mr. Chair. You know, I hear a lot about the water and everything else that's going out there. And I'll go back to what the chairman said about 2 meetings ago, is, it seems to me like we're chasing the squirrel. We're only talking about this because the developer wants to put property out there. Do we have a plan out there to be getting water? Because we already know that a 6-inch line is only going to take care of that property. But if you are believing that development, that water is going to bring development, and you need water for the schools that goes out there, we're reacting because of a developer as opposed to reacting because of a strategic plan. Would that be fair?
At this point in time. But
Okay.
we've addressed that in a meeting last week with PwC, not these developers, but other developers. And in fact, what you're just saying, there needs to be a master plan. And, or else we're going to have lines extended at
Right.
6 inches. So
Yeah.
that has to be initiated by the county.
And there's precedent for that because that's what happened out in the Baywood subdivision, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other commissioner? One of the things I'd like to say, though, is that this plan is 2 years old, and I know we've got the disclaimer at the front that says it's subject to change. Do we let the landowners know that there's some change coming? These folk worked on this project for a long time in terms of this plan that they did for the Grays Creek area, and just to come in and say, well, it triggered, but we don't tell them that it's about to be triggered. So is there some mechanism to inform whatever community we in that there's some triggers that's about to change their plan? Do we have that?
No, the rezoning notification is the only notification they have of that.
That property is going to be rezoned, but not that the master plan. The reason I asked you that, I know they worked on that plan, how long? It was a couple of years. And if I put that much time and effort into it, I just think that out of common decent courtesy, you say, hey, there's some triggers in here. We need to look at this plan, or this plan is about to change.
Right, and
that may be from the
have
future
started-
on.
Yes, sir, and we've gone over that,
Right.
not on this plan, but after this plan. This was a hotly contested plan. This is the hottest contested plan I've ever been involved with, because you had a development community on one side, people wanted to keep it rural on the other. You had to draw a line somewhere, and that's really what sparked the planning board into saying, look, we'll go ahead and put a line on a map. And like you're saying, people say, okay, we're in an agricultural area, we're in a rural area. But that's subject to change. And now what we're doing is, at the beginning of these plans, like we started at Vander, right off the bat, we're letting people know utilities, road widenings, things like that are triggers that could cause the plan to change. Because plans do evolve, they change.
Okay. And I think on this, Mr. Yarborough, you talked about retention plans. Retention ponds. You know, I talked about it on the north side. Any possibilities of sidewalks? You know, I always talk about that with these developers. I can't require it, but I always ask. That's a neighborhood, that's all.
It's not required, and I would point out to you that the internal, this property will be basically internal streets. There will be nowhere for the sidewalks to connect to. So
Not to the neighborhood. I mean, it could go through the neighborhood.
yeah, I mean, but you're walking around in your own neighborhood.
Okay. Commissioner Evans.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sir, this statement that you're talking about being put in place before any rezoning is taking place with the 2030 plan, when did you start that? Out of curiosity.
The last plan?
The last plan, when
Yes,
was
sir,
that?
this plan.
Yes. Okay.
Because
Okay,
we've had, the general public feels that when you get a map, a land use plan map, that it's going to be that way for the next however many years till we get there again, which is usually about 15 years, maybe more. As you can see, I can remember when Hope Mills Road was transitioning. At one time, that was all residential. But as roads widen, as things change, infrastructure changes, plans change. And plans grow is what we call it, in all of planning. And so we put that statement in there to say, okay, it's not realistic. You can go by and see many cases that you voted on didn't go against a plan that was 10 years old. Things have changed in the area. So a statement like that is put in there to let the public know, listen, as infrastructure changes, as conditions change, this area is changing, and the plan grows, is amended.
Thank you. Commissioner Council.
I was trying to recall thank you, Mr. Chairman, the case that we voted on last month, which set a precedent in my mind for the extension of water, which is a goal of this board.